So Villas asked me how I make my tokens for my tabletop games, and I figured that I would go ahead and just put down a real quick recording for this just to talk about my process here. So normally I just kind of troll for images from the internet, but recently with my current game, I'm I'm using Novel AI to do some image generation for me. We can always talk about the moral implications of that some other time, but so what I'll do is I will take this, put it in my my base folder, because usually the way I have these set up is I have the base folder where I put all the sorts of unedited images, and then I have a tokens folder and a maps folder, sounds as well. Um, just trying to keep myself at least a little bit organized. And you know what? I'm gonna go rogue here. So what I do is I open up my image editing program. You can use whatever you want, obviously, but personally, what I've learned over the years and what works best for me is paint.net. You just go to getpaint.net and head over to the download page, and you just get it from .pdn right here. I find it to be simple enough that I can quickly open it up and not have to worry about learning anything new or subscriptions or anything. So that's generally what I use. So what I do is I make sure that I open up the first image, and then what I do is I've had this project file right here for like 2 years, I think. Basically, it's just a basic frame that I feel like I can recolor well enough, fits perfectly fine in a hex token grid. And the big thing about it for me is that there's a little bit of extra space on the outsides, which makes it so that I can get a bit of headroom for whatever character I want to put into the image. So, the way that this goes is start out with this project file, have an empty layer under the main layer that has the frame on it, and then what I do is I just paste this bad boy in, give myself a good amount of headroom. Generally, what I do is try to make sure that at least one of these bounds fits correctly, because I want to fill in the whole frame with this character while still being able to keep as much of them in there as I can. And for this guy, I think we'll get just a bit more. There we go. So then after that, but these AI generated ones, I have to do a bit more manual editing, but I figure it's a fine enough trade-off. So what I do at this point is, if the background isn't already on, I go ahead and get to work on manually removing it. Generally, what I do is I just kind of turn down the hardness on here so that the edges aren't quite as jagged. And I just kind of I erase around the parts that I really need to, because most of this stuff is like really just the stuff above the shoulders and around the head. That's all that I really need to manually remove. Everything else will be automatically removed in my process. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish cleaning this up here. Something I feel like I should mention is that it doesn't matter, especially with these AI generated ones, it doesn't matter too much if like you start seeing these semi-transparent edges around there. That's kind of something that I actually prefer to have. And especially once you get out to like this far out on, as you'll be seeing it when you're actually in game, it doesn't matter that much, the very fine details. Something that I actually end up doing sometimes with these, like if there's a single spot that's pretty that's mostly one color, then what I can do is I pull up the magic wand right here and select a spot that looks like I could get away with mostly deleting. And then we can just keep going from there. Okay, I think that's good enough. So once I have the most important parts deleted so that it's all just transparent around the background, what I will do is I will pull up my rectangle here and select around everything that I want to be outside of the frame. This one's pretty basic, it's just his head, but this stuff can get kind of complicated. Like if you have certain parts of armor that are sticking out, you kind of have to make these judgment calls, and sometimes you might have to like select very specific parts to be put in front of the frame. A lot of this comes down to artist's intent. So I just cut it from the bottom layer, and then Control-Shift-V to make a new layer and paste what I had copied on a new layer. So this way, our man is popping out from the top of the portrait, or the frame a little bit. And from here, lately I've been seeing just a few spots that could use a little bit of touching up in front of the frames, so just do a bit of cleanup there. Because I'd say if there's one spot that you want to make sure you kind of got it right, it's going to be these spots around the frame, because that's something that actually shows up when you're actually on a map. And sometimes, at least for me, it kind of bothers me when I don't have it set up correctly. So now I have his head in front of the frame and most of his body behind the frame. Now what you got to do is you got to remove the rest of the background here. So what I do is I pull out the old magic wand again, then I select inside of this frame. We'll turn up the tolerance as high as we can. Don't actually have to do this. I do this mostly because I feel like sometimes there's like jagged edges around here and the transparency doesn't always look right. So we turn up the tolerance as high as we can before it actually escapes the frame. And then go down to our bottom layer, hit Control-I to invert my selection, and then just hit delete. And there we go. And we got a fancy looking lad here. So I will Control-Shift-S to pull up the Save As menu. Then we're going to save this as a PNG because that saves transparency. Just always auto detect, let it flatten. For some reason, well, I guess I know why. PNG formats automatically flatten it. I've kind of gotten down to muscle memory at this point to unflatten it, like the moment that I save it, just in case I see anything in the actual game that I don't like. So with that done, now I can pull up the game and immediately just go ahead and drop it in there and see what I think. Obviously, since the image that I made is so big, it's going to be started a little big here. This one takes a little bit of work, but I just set this up so I know exactly the sort of dimensions that I'm looking for. So now we can just slide our man right in, and now I've got ourselves a little squad of spaceys. Ain't that nice? So I hope that helps out. Feel free to ask me any questions that you might have.